The screaming had stopped 3 days ago. Commander Vex Theory of the Hegemony 7th Fleet pressed his scaled talons against the observation window, watching the humans slumped in the detention cell below. The creature's flesh hung in tatters from weeks of interrogation, yet its chest still rose and fell with stubborn defiance. Blood pooled beneath the restraint chair, dark and thick in the artificial gravity. Still nothing? Vex Theory's voice carried the authority of someone who had crushed 17 worlds beneath his fleet's guns. Interrogator Kilmatha's forearms gestured helplessly, her carapace clicking with frustration. The subject refuses to provide navigational data for Earth's defensive positions. We have employed neural probes, bone dissolution acids, and sensory overload chambers. It merely endures. The human's name was Marcus Holloway, according to captured records from his destroyed scout ship. A nobody, a minor exploration vessel captain caught on the wrong side of a jump gate when the hegemony decided humanity needed to be reminded of their place in the galactic hierarchy. 3 months ago, his ship had been vaporized by a hegemony dreadnought. He should have died with his crew. Instead, the transporter beam had caught him mid-explosion, delivering him directly into their custody. Increase the pain threshold, Vex Theory commanded, his yellow eyes gleaming with predatory satisfaction. I want information about human fleet movements, their weapon capabilities, their industrial centers. The Council demands results before we launch the final assault on their homeworld. Through the reinforced transparasteel, Holloway lifted his head. His left eye was swollen shut, but his right eye found Vex Theory's gaze and held it. The human's lips moved, forming words too quiet to hear through the barrier. Vex Theory activated the comm channel. Speak, creature. You should have killed me. Holloway's voice was a rasp, barely human after weeks of torture. You should have left me to die with my ship. Your threats are meaningless, Vex Theory sneered. You are alone, broken, and forgotten. Your species will share your fate soon enough. But something in the human's remaining eye made Vex Theory's crest feathers bristle with unease. It wasn't pain or despair, it was anticipation. My ship's emergency beacon, Holloway whispered, his cracked lips forming what might have been a smile. You never found it, did you? Kilmatha's mandibles chittered nervously. We scanned the debris field thoroughly. No beacon technology was detected. That's because it wasn't designed to be detected by your sensors. Holloway's breathing grew labored, but his voice carried growing strength. Humans learned something valuable during the Proxima Wars. When you're outgunned, you don't fight fair. You cheat. You lie. You build things that shouldn't exist. Vex Theory felt ice form in his twin hearts. What are you talking about? 3 months, Commander. That's how long I've been your guest. Do you know what 3 months means to human military doctrine? Holloway's remaining eye blazed with something terrible. It means they've had time to build her. Time to test her. Time to load her with every piece of spite and hatred our species has accumulated over 1,000 years of warfare. The facility's proximity alarms began shrieking. Red warning lights bathed the detention level in crimson as automated defense systems powered up. Through the speakers, a voice crackled with barely controlled panic. All stations, unknown contact detected at system perimeter. Signature doesn't match any known vessel classification. It's massive. Holloway began to laugh, a sound devoid of sanity or mercy. Her name is the Retribution, Commander. And she's here for me. On the tactical displays throughout the station, a ship appeared, if it could be called a ship. It was wrong in ways that hurt to perceive, built from technologies that skirted the edge of what physics allowed. Its hull was matte black, drinking in light and sensor scans alike. Weapons batteries covered every surface, each one larger than most frigates. But it was the ship's size that made seasoned warriors whisper prayers to forgotten gods. The Retribution was 7 kilometers long. Impossible, Vex Theory breathed. No species builds ships that size. The power requirements alone. Humans do, Holloway said, his voice carrying the weight of approaching doom. When you take one of ours. When you herd him for months. When you broadcast his screams across subspace as a warning to his species. His laughter echoed through the chamber, growing louder as the facility's shields began to fail under scanning beams from the approaching Leviathan. You thought you were teaching us fear, Commander? Instead you taught us hate. And humans are very, very good at hate. The lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, casting everything in hellish red. In the darkness, Marcus Holloway's laughter mixed with the sound of approaching engines that could crack planets. The first salvo from the Retribution turned half the orbital defense platform into superheated vapor. Commodore Vex Theory watched in horrified fascination as beams of coherent energy, Energy that shouldn't have been possible to generate, let alone weaponize, carved through the station's shields like they were decorative light displays. The weapon strikes didn't just destroy, they unmade, reducing molecular bonds to their component atoms in brilliant flashes of impossible physics. All batteries return fire. Vex Theory roared into his command comm, deploy the fleet screen. Through the observation deck's reinforced windows, the hegemony's third defense wing moved to engage. 47 ships of the line, each one a proven killer that had pacified entire star systems. Their
particle cannons and plasma torpedoes lit up space with patterns of destruction that had broken the backs of a dozen rebellious species. The weapons struck the Retribution's hull and simply stopped. Not deflected by shields, not absorbed by armor plating. They ceased to exist upon contact, as if the ship's hull existed in a space where physics worked differently. Impossible, breathed Navigator Kethvar from his station. Nothing can generate those kinds of protective fields. The power requirements would need the output of a star. His words died as the Retribution's secondary batteries spoke. Streams of weaponized antimatter tore through the hegemony formation. The heavy cruiser subjugator vanished in a flash of annihilation. The destroyer wing of Judgment lasted long enough to scream a distress call before her reactor breached, taking 2 escort frigates with her. In the detention center, Marcus Holloway pressed his face against the observation window, watching the battle unfold across the tactical displays. His broken body trembled with exhaustion, but his eyes burned with vindication. "Beautiful, isn't she?" he whispered to Killmoth, who stood frozen at her interrogation controls. 12 kilometers of human engineering, built in the Tau Ceti shipyards over the course of 87 days. Every spare gram of resources the Colonial Defense Force could scrape together, all for one purpose. Killmoth's mandibles clicked in terror. What purpose? To kill everything that hurt me. Outside, the battle continued its horrific ballet. The hegemony fleet tried to establish a formation, their vessels linking shields and coordinating fire patterns in textbook defensive maneuvers. It might have worked against any conventional opponent. The Retribution was not conventional. Her primary weapon, a device human physicists had called the Entropy Lance, fired for the first time in combat. The beam struck the battlecruiser Domination amidships and kept going, passing through 4 more vessels in perfect alignment. Where it touched, reality broke down. Molecular structures collapsed. Energy fields inverted. The very fabric of space-time developed stress fractures that glowed with impossible colors. 5 capital ships died in a single shot. Status report. Vex Theory demanded, his comm beginning to crack. 43 vessels remaining, reported his tactical officer, voice breaking. 17 have suffered major damage. The human ship shows no signs of wear, no energy depletion. Her shields haven't even flickered. On the detention level, alarms screamed as hull breaches began venting atmosphere. The station's superstructure groaned under the stress of nearby explosions, but the reinforced detention wing held. For now. Holloway's laughter echoed through the corridors as guards ran past his cell, their weapons useless against an enemy that fought with physics itself. "You know what the beauty of it is?" he called out to his captors. "She's not even trying yet. Those are her secondary systems. Her ranging shots." Killmoth stumbled to the comm panel, her forearms shaking as she activated the emergency channel. "This is Detention Center Omega-7 to all hegemony forces. We have valuable intelligence assets. Repeat, we have prisoners who..." The transmission cut off as the Retribution's targeting systems painted the detention facility with scanning beams that burned through electronic systems like acid through tissue. Every computer, every communications array, every automated defense gun simply stopped functioning. In the sudden silence, a new sound filled the air. The deep, thrumming vibration of massive engines changing pitch. Through the facility's remaining windows, the Retribution was visible now, her bulk blotting out stars as she approached. Her hull was a masterwork of violent engineering, every surface covered with weapon emplacements that tracked targets with predatory patience. "She's slowing," Vex Theory realized with growing dread. "She's not here to destroy the station. She's here to board us." Marcus Holloway's remaining eye gleamed with anticipation. "Oh, Commander." You still don't understand. The Retribution isn't just a ship. She's a statement. A promise that when humans go to war, we don't just fight to win. We fight to ensure that anyone who hurts us learns to regret it for the rest of their very short lives. The first boarding pods launched from the Retribution's belly, each one the size of a shuttle and moving with impossible speed. They struck the station's hull and burrowed through layers of armor plating like they were made of paper. Inside each pod were 12 human soldiers wearing armor that shouldn't have existed and carrying weapons that violated 3 separate galactic conventions on civilized warfare. The boarding had begun. The first human through the breach moved like death given form. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez, 3rd Colonial Marine Expeditionary Unit, stepped through the molten hole her boarding pod had carved in the station's hull. Her powered armor was black as space and twice as unforgiving, each servo-assisted movement carrying the promise of violence. The rifle in her gauntlet hands hummed with barely contained energy, a weapon that fired rounds of condensed neutronium at 7% the speed of light. Behind her, 11 more Marines poured through the breach. Their armor bore no unit insignia, no national flags, no indication of origin. The only marking was a simple phrase stenciled across their chest plates in a dozen human languages: for Marcus. The first Hegemony security team rounded the corner at a dead run, their plasma weapons already charging. They found themselves facing humans who had spent 3 months preparing for this moment, training for this exact scenario, dreaming of this precise revenge.
The engagement lasted 4 seconds. When the smoke cleared, 12 Hegemony soldiers lay dead or dying. The humans hadn't even slowed down. Tiger 1 to all Tiger units. Vasquez spoke into her comm as her team advanced through corridors designed for creatures twice human height. Package is located in Detention Section Omega-7, Sublevel 19. Objective is retrieval and extract. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Repeat, weapons-free on all hostiles. In the command center, Vex Theory watched the tactical displays with growing horror. The boarding action wasn't proceeding like any assault in recorded military history. The humans weren't trying to capture strategic positions or disable critical systems. They were simply killing everything in their path with mechanical efficiency. How many? He demanded. Initial count suggests 60 Marines across 5 boarding pods, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking with stress. But they're moving through our defensive positions like they don't exist. Sir, we've lost contact with security sectors 7 through 12. No survivors. Deploy the Corvin Honor Guard, Vex Theory ordered. The Corvins were the Hegemony's elite soldiers, genetically engineered for combat, equipped with the finest weapons technology could provide. Each one was worth 10 normal troops. Stop them at any cost. In the detention wing, Interrogator Killmoth had armed herself with a plasma rifle and taken position behind an overturned desk. The facility's lights flickered as explosions echoed through the superstructure, growing closer with each passing minute. Marcus Holloway sat calmly in his restraint chair, his broken body somehow radiating satisfaction. You should run, he advised conversationally. My people are coming and they're not in a forgiving mood. Your people are 12 soldiers, Killmoth snapped, her 4 arms keeping the weapon trained on him. This facility houses 3,000 Hegemony personnel. Your rescue attempt is suicide. 12 soldiers. Holloway laughed, the sound echoing off the bare walls. Oh, my dear torturer. You still don't understand what humans do when we're angry. The detention center's main doors exploded inward in a shower of molten metal. Through the smoke came a figure in black armor, moving with predatory grace. Sergeant Vasquez's helmet turned toward Killmoth with mechanical precision. Drop your weapon, the Marine ordered in perfect Hegemony standard. You have 3 seconds to comply. Killmoth's plasma rifle was already charging when Vasquez's neutronium rounds tore through her thorax. The interrogator collapsed, her 4 arms twitching as her nervous system shut down. Package secured, Vasquez reported, moving to Holloway's restraint chair. Her armor's medical scanners painted his condition in harsh detail across her HUD: malnutrition, tissue damage, evidence of prolonged torture. Jesus, Marcus, what did they do to you? Their best, Holloway whispered as the restraints released. And it wasn't enough. The other Marines had taken defensive positions around the detention center, their weapons covering all approaches. Through the facility's speakers, alarm klaxons mixed with the sound of distant combat as more human boarding teams carved their way through the station's interior. Sir, one of the Marines reported, We've got movement. Corvin units, 40 strong, approaching from the main corridor. Vasquez helped Holloway to his feet, supporting his weight with mechanical precision. Can you move? I can walk. His voice was steel wrapped in pain. But Elena, I'm not the only one. They have other prisoners. Humans taken from the border colonies. The sergeant's helmet turned toward him, and even through the armor's faceless design, her fury was palpable. How many? 17. Sublevel 22, Section C. Tiger 2, this is Tiger 1. Vasquez spoke into her calm. Mission parameters have changed. We have additional packages to collect. 17 souls, sublevel 22. The response crackled back through static. Copy, Tiger 1. Orders from the Retribution are unchanged, no human left behind. Through the facility's crumbling infrastructure, the sound of combat grew closer. The Corvin Honor Guard had engaged the other Marine teams and the battle was fierce. Plasma fire lit up corridors as genetically enhanced warriors met humans equipped with impossible technology. But in the detention center, surrounded by the corpses of his torturers, Marcus Holloway smiled for the first time in 3 months. Through the facility's windows, the Retribution waited like a patient predator, her weapons tracking the desperate movements of the remaining hegemony fleet. Elena, he said quietly, when we get out of here, and I know we will, I want you to deliver a message to whoever's in command of that beautiful ship. What message? Holloway's remaining eye blazed with something that made even the hardened Marine step back. Tell them this was just the beginning. The Corvin Honor Guard died hard. Genetically engineered for warfare, their exoskeletons could deflect plasma fire and their reflexes operated at superhuman speeds. They had never retreated, never surrendered, never shown mercy to an enemy. Each warrior was a masterpiece of biological engineering, designed to be the perfect soldier. They lasted exactly 18 minutes against human fury. Sergeant Vasquez led her team through corridors painted with alien blood, her armor sensors mapping the carnage left by Tiger 2 and Tiger 3. The Corvins had tried to make a stand at Junction 7, using their superior numbers and defensive positions to create a killing field. They hadn't accounted for human ingenuity. The Marines had introduced them to fusion grenades. Tiger 1, this is Tiger 4. The comm crackled with urgent static. We've reached sublevel 22. Confirmed 17 human prisoners, but we've got a problem. They're wired to a dead man switch. The whole section will go up if we try a standard extraction. Vasquez supported Marcus Holloway as they navigated around a crater that had once been a Corvin fighting position. The man's breathing was labored, but his eyes remained sharp with determined hatred. Can you disable it? She asked into her comm. Negative. The system is biometrically locked to the facility commander. We need. The transmission cut off as explosions echoed through the superstructure. On the tactical displays still functioning throughout the station, the Retribution had finished with the orbital defense fleet. 47 ships had become expanding clouds of debris and superheated plasma. Now the massive human vessel was turning her attention to the smaller targets, supply depots, communication relays, and the remaining defense platforms. Each target died with clinical efficiency. In the command center, Commodore Vex Theory watched his career and his species' supremacy evaporate in real time. The humans hadn't just built a ship, they had created a weapon that redefined the very concept of warfare. The Retribution's capabilities violated everything the hegemony understood about physics, engineering, and military doctrine. Sir, his tactical officer reported, voice breaking with barely controlled panic. The human vessel is launching additional boarding pods. Sensor count suggests 4,000 Marines. 4,000. Vex Theory's crest feathers flattened against his skull in an instinctive fear response. That's impossible. No ship can carry that many troops. The pods are materializing directly from the ship's hull. The humans appear to have developed some form of matter compilation technology. Through the command center's main display, the sight was both beautiful and terrifying. The Retribution sides opened like flower petals, revealing internal structures that existed in dimensions that hurt to perceive. From these impossible spaces, boarding pods emerged in perfect formation, each one carrying 12 Marines armed with weapons that shouldn't exist. But it was the ship's next action that broke the last of Vex Theory's composure. The Retribution's main engines, devices that seemed to bend space-time around their exhaust manifolds, began to change their output. Instead of propulsion, they were generating something else. The space around the human ship began to fold. Impossible, breathed Navigation Officer Kethvar. They're creating a localized space-time distortion. The gravitational effects alone should tear their ship apart. Humans don't build ships, Holloway said quietly as Vasquez helped him through another destroyed checkpoint. We build promises. And the promise of the retribution is simple. Anyone who hurts us dies. Anyone who helps them dies. Anyone who stands in our way dies. The gravitational distortion reached the detention facility, and suddenly the station's artificial gravity began fluctuating. Lights dimmed as power systems struggled to compensate. Throughout the complex, automated systems began failing as the very fabric of space-time rippled around them. Tiger 1 to Tiger 4, Vasquez spoke into her comm, bracing herself as another gravity wave passed through the structure. Status on the prisoners? We've located the facility commander, came the reply. Commodore Vex Theory. But he's barricaded in the command center with the biometric locks. We're going to have to go through approximately 300 defenders to reach him. Vasquez looked at Marcus Holloway, noting the way his remaining eye gleamed with anticipation despite his injuries. Marcus, you know this facility better than anyone. Is there another way? Yes. His voice carried the weight of months spent studying every detail of his prison. But you're not going to like it. Tell me. The detention center's emergency systems route through the main power core. If we overload it, the explosion will take out the biometric locks, the dead man switches, and probably half the station. He paused, his cracked lips forming what might have been a smile. Of course, it will also kill everyone in a 12-section radius. Including us? Probably. Sergeant Vasquez was quiet for a long moment, her helmet sensors tracking the approaching footsteps of more hegemony security teams. Finally, she activated her comm channel to address all Tiger units. All teams, this is Tiger 1. Mission parameters are changing again. We're going to blow the power core and extract all prisoners simultaneously. Time to impact, approximately 4 minutes. If you're not in position by then, you won't make it out. The response was immediate and unanimous. Acknowledged. Through the facility's failing communication systems, Commodore Vex Theory realized what the humans intended. His species had tortured one human soldier for 3 months, broadcasting his screams as a warning to humanity. Now humanity was about to demonstrate the consequences of that decision. The power core's overload sequence began with a low, thrumming vibration that could be felt in every bone. The power core's detonation lit up 3 star systems. When the fusion containment fields collapsed, they released the equivalent energy of a small sun in the space of 12 seconds. The detention facility's central core became a brief star, its light visible from neighboring planets as it consumed metal, flesh, and spacetime itself in a ball of nuclear fire. Sergeant Vasquez felt the explosion lift her and Marcus Holloway like a giant's hand, hurling them through corridors that were already becoming plasma. Her armor's inertial dampeners screamed warnings as G-forces that should have liquefied them somehow failed to kill. Around them, the station's superstructure peeled away like paper in a hurricane. Emergency teleport now, she screamed into her comm as her armor systems registered radiation levels that would have sterilized entire continents. The last thing she saw before the emergency extraction beam caught them was Commodore Vex Theory's command center exploding in a fountain of superheated gases and screaming aliens. Materialization aboard the Retribution was like being born into hell. The ship's teleporter bay was a cathedral of impossible architecture, its walls covered with quantum displacement matrices that existed in 7 dimensions simultaneously. Vasquez and Holloway materialized alongside streams of other Marines, all of them smoking from radiation exposure, their armor scarred by energies that shouldn't have been survivable. Medical teams to Displacement 7. The voice belonged to Colonel Diana Reeves, commanding officer of the 3rd Colonial Marine Expeditionary Unit. She was a woman who had seen 30 years of colonial warfare, but the expression on her face as she surveyed the returning Marines was something approaching religious awe. How many did we get? All 17 prisoners recovered, reported Tiger 4's leader, removing his helmet to reveal a face marked by burns and determination. Package 1 is severely injured but stable. The facility is gone, complete structural collapse. Through the Retribution's observation decks, the destruction was visible as an expanding sphere of nuclear fire where the detention station had been. But the fireworks were just beginning. The remaining hegemony forces, over 200 ships that had been stationed throughout the system, were converging on the human vessel with everything they had. Battle cruisers, destroyers, escort carriers, and support vessels formed a battle formation that stretched across thousands of cubic kilometers of space. Fleet Admiral Torgen of the Hegemony 4th Battle Group had never lost an engagement in 40 years of service. His force included some of the most advanced warships in known space, crewed by veterans who had conquered entire sectors. As his flagship's primary batteries locked onto the human vessel, he felt the familiar surge of predatory satisfaction that came before victory. "All ships, concentrate fire on the enemy's primary weapon systems," he commanded. "Disable their main armament, then we'll take them apart piece by piece." 200 ships opened fire simultaneously. The barrage was magnificent. Streams of plasma, particle beams, fusion torpedoes, and antimatter charges creating a light show that could be seen from the outer planets. Every weapon in the hegemony arsenal struck the Retribution's hull with combined force equivalent to planetary bombardment. The human ship didn't even slow down. Impossible. Torgen roared as his tactical displays showed the enemy vessel completely unharmed. "Our sensors show direct hits. Where are the hull breaches?" His weapons officer's voice cracked with disbelief. "Sir, the enemy vessel appears to be absorbing our weapon strikes. Not deflecting them, absorbing them. Their hull temperature is actually decreasing." On the Retribution's bridge, Captain Sarah Martinez watched the enemy formation with professional interest. The bridge itself was a sphere of crystalline materials that existed partially outside normal spacetime, allowing its occupants to perceive the battle from multiple dimensional perspectives simultaneously. "Absorption rate is optimal," reported her tactical officer. "We're at 93% charge." "Good." Martinez's voice carried the calm authority of someone who had designed this entire engagement 3 months in advance. "Signal the fleet, commence Operation Retribution." Throughout the system, space began to ripple as additional human vessels emerged from hyperspace. But these weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were floating weapons platforms, each one built around a single devastating system designed for one purpose: the absolute elimination of anything that threatened humanity. The lead vessel was the Vindication, a 12-kilometer blade of crystallized hatred carrying planet-killing antimatter bombs. Behind her came the Nemesis, equipped with gravitational collapse weapons that could crush capital ships like tin cans. The Fury carried bioweapons that could sterilize entire species. The Wrath mounted temporal displacement systems that could age enemy ships to dust in seconds. 16 vessels total, each one representing humanity's most creative efforts at turning physics into a weapon of vengeance. Fleet Admiral Torgen watched his tactical displays with growing horror as the human fleet deployed in perfect formation. "How many ships do they have?" "Sir," his sensor officer's voice was barely a whisper, "these aren't ships. According to our analysis, each one is a specialized weapon designed to kill everything in a specific way." The first human vessel to fire was the Vindication. Her antimatter bombs struck the hegemony formation like the fist of an angry god. 3 battlecruisers and their escort screens simply ceased to exist, their atoms scattered across light years of space in expanding clouds of pure energy. The Nemesis fired next. Her gravitational weapons reached out across impossible distances and began crushing ships like grapes. The screams of dying crews echoed across emergency frequencies as their vessels collapsed into compressed metal spheres no larger than shuttlecraft. "All ships, emergency retreat," Torgen commanded, his calm finally breaking. "Signal Fleet Command, request immediate reinforcement. We need." His words were cut off as the Retribution finally fired her primary weapon. The Entropy Lance tore through the heart of the hegemony formation like it was empty space. 17 capital ships died in a single shot, their molecular structures unraveling in cascades of impossible physics. Where the beam passed, spacetime itself developed stress fractures that would take decades to heal. In the span of 4 minutes, the 4th battle group ceased to exist. The emergency session of the Hegemony High Council convened in a bunker 3 kilometers beneath the capital city of Nexus Prime, their homeworld. The most powerful beings in known space sat around a crystalline table that had witnessed the planning of 1,000 conquests. But today their conversations carried the bitter taste of impending defeat. "Report," commanded Supreme Chancellor Veltar, his ancient voice carrying 4 centuries of absolute authority. Fleet Admiral Zexkoth, one of only 3 survivors from the engagement with the human fleet, stood before the assembly with his career in ruins. "The 4th battle group is gone. Complete annihilation. 200 ships, 50,000 personnel, vaporized in less than 6 minutes. The human vessels didn't just defeat us, Chancellor. They demonstrated that our entire understanding of warfare is obsolete." The council chamber fell silent except for the whisper of recycled air through ancient ventilation systems. Finally, Defense Minister Kolvek spoke. "1 ship. We lost 200 vessels to 1 human ship." 16 ships, Zexkoth corrected. "But yes, their primary vessel, the one they call Retribution, appears to be capable of single-handedly destroying entire fleets. Our weapons can't penetrate their defenses. Our tactics are irrelevant against their technology and their offensive capabilities. He paused, struggling for words. They don't fight wars, Chancellor. They fight exterminations. Chancellor Veltar's 4 eyes closed in contemplation. The hegemony had ruled this sector of space for over a millennium, their military might unquestioned, their technology supreme. Species that defied them were absorbed or eliminated with mechanical efficiency. The humans had been just another primitive race requiring education in the realities of galactic politics. What are they demanding? He asked finally. Zexkoth activated a holographic display showing the human fleet's current position, 47 light-years from Nexus Prime and advancing steadily. They've made no demands, Chancellor. No communications. No offers for negotiation. They're simply coming. Through the bunker's communication arrays, a priority transmission began broadcasting on all frequencies. The image that appeared was grainy and distorted, but recognizable. Marcus Holloway, seated in what appeared to be the Retribution's medical bay. His injuries were healing with the aid of advanced medical technology, but his remaining eye still burned with months of accumulated hatred. Citizens of the hegemony, his voice carried clearly despite the static. 3 months ago you captured me and spent considerable effort trying to break my will. You wanted information about human military capabilities, our defensive positions, our industrial capacity. He paused, his cracked lips forming a smile devoid of mercy. Consider this your answer. The transmission cut to external views of the human fleet. 16 vessels that looked like they had been designed by engineers who understood that sometimes the only appropriate response to evil was overwhelming violence. Each ship was unique, built around weapon systems that violated physical laws in different and creative ways. You took one human, Holloway continued. We built 16 ships of the line in response. Each one carries enough firepower to sterilize entire star systems. Each one is operated by volunteers who have sworn an oath to ensure that anyone who hurts a human being learns to regret that decision. In the council chamber, Defense Minister Kolvex consulted his tactical displays with growing panic. Chancellor, our intelligence estimates suggest that these vessels represent the entire industrial output of human space for the past 3 months. They've converted their entire civilization into a weapon manufacturing complex. For one prisoner? Chancellor Veltar's voice carried disbelief. For the principal, Zexkoth corrected grimly. According to recovered communications from the debris field, human military doctrine is explicit. An attack on one human is an attack on all humans. They don't negotiate with kidnappers or torturers. They simply kill them. The transmission from Marcus Holloway resumed, this time showing him standing despite his injuries, supported by the Marine who had rescued him. We're not coming to conquer your world's hegemony. We're not coming to absorb your territories or subjugate your peoples. We're coming to teach you a lesson that will echo through the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. Humans are not your prey. We are your predators. The communication arrays across Nexus Prime began screaming with proximity alarms. Through the bunker's defensive sensors, the human fleet was visible now, 16 vessels approaching at impossible speeds, their hulls drinking in light and radar scans like hungry shadows. How long until they reached the capital? Chancellor Veltar asked. 6 hours, reported the sensor operator. But Chancellor, our planetary defense grid has been designed to repel invasion fleets numbering in the thousands. Surely 16 ships, regardless of their individual capabilities. His words were cut off as the first human vessel fired from a distance of 12 light minutes. The Vindication's antimatter torpedo took 17 seconds to reach Nexus Prime's outer moon, where it detonated with the force of a small star. The moon simply ceased to exist, its mass converted to pure energy in a flash visible from 3 systems away. Estimated time to planetary bombardment? Veltar's voice remained steady despite the magnitude of what they faced. At current approach speed, 4 hours and 37 minutes. In the medical bay of the Retribution, Marcus Holloway watched tactical displays showing the hegemony homeworld growing larger on the screens. His body was healing, but his soul carried scars that would never fade. 3 months of torture had burned away any mercy he might have once possessed, leaving only the cold mathematics of revenge. Elena, he said to Sergeant Vasquez, who remained at his side despite regulations requiring her to return to duty. When this is over, I want you to make sure they remember. I want every species in the galaxy to know what happens when you hurt one of us. The sergeant's scarred face showed understanding. It will be remembered, Marcus. We'll make sure of that. Through the ship's observation decks, Nexus Prime gleamed like a jewel against the darkness. A world of 3 billion souls who were about to learn that humanity's capacity for vengeance was limited only by their imagination. The final assault was about to begin. The planetary defense grid of Nexus Prime had been constructed over 2 centuries, a masterwork of military engineering designed to repel the largest invasion fleets imaginable. Orbital platforms mounting weapons that could crack continents. Energy shields capable of deflecting asteroid impacts. Automated defense systems that could track and eliminate 10,000 targets simultaneously. It lasted exactly 14 minutes against human ingenuity. Captain Sarah Martinez stood in the Retribution's crystalline command sphere, watching the systematic dismantling of hegemony military power with professional satisfaction. Her ship's entropy lance carved through defensive platforms like they were made of paper, each shot precisely calculated to maximize psychological impact on the defenders below. "Signal from the planetary surface," reported her communications officer. "Chancellor Veltar requests immediate ceasefire and negotiation." Martinez glanced at Marcus Holloway, who had insisted on being present for the final engagement despite his injuries. The man's remaining eye held no trace of mercy. "Tell the Chancellor," Martinez said calmly, "that negotiations concluded the moment they decided to torture a human being for 3 months. What happens next is education." The Vindication fired next, her antimatter bombs striking the planet's primary military installations with surgical precision. The explosions were visible from orbit, flowers of nuclear fire that consumed entire military complexes in seconds. But the human fleet was careful to avoid civilian populations. This wasn't genocide. This was a demonstration. On Nexus Prime's surface, in the deep bunkers beneath the capital, Supreme Chancellor Veltar watched his civilization's military might evaporate on tactical displays. 4 centuries of conquest, a millennium of galactic dominance, reduced to burning wreckage in less than an hour. "Casualty reports?" he asked, his ancient voice finally showing strain. "Military casualties approaching 2 million, reported his aide. "Civilian casualties, minimal. The humans are avoiding population centers. They're not trying to conquer us," Defense Minister Kolvex realized with growing horror. "They're making a point." The point became clearer as the human fleet took up position in a perfect sphere around Nexus Prime. 16 ships, each one capable of sterilizing the planet, arranged in a formation that demonstrated absolute control over the hegemony homeworld's fate. Then the broadcast began. Every communication channel on the planet, military, civilian, emergency, entertainment, carried the same signal. Marcus Holloway's face appeared on billions of screens simultaneously, his scarred features bearing witness to months of torture. "People of the hegemony," he began, his voice carrying across an entire world. "My name is Marcus Holloway, captain of the colonial survey vessel Prometheus. 3 months ago, your military captured me and spent considerable effort trying to break my spirit. They wanted me to reveal information about human defensive capabilities. The transmission cut to recordings, security footage from the detention facility showing the interrogation sessions in graphic detail. The torture methods, the failed attempts to break his will, the casual cruelty of his captors. This is what your leaders authorize in your name," Holloway continued. "This is the face of hegemony justice. This is what happens to those who oppose your expansion." On the planet's surface, billions of citizens watched in stunned silence as their government's methods were exposed in brutal detail. Many had suspected, but few had known the full scope of their rulers' brutality. "But here's what your leaders didn't understand about humans," Holloway's voice carried a new quality, not hatred but something far more dangerous. "We don't break. We don't surrender. We don't forget. And when you hurt one of us, you discover that our entire species is willing to convert every resource, every factory, every fragment of our civilization into instruments of revenge." The display shifted to show the construction of the human fleet, hundreds of worlds working in perfect coordination, their entire industrial capacity focused on building weapons of impossible sophistication. Humanity had literally transformed itself into a weapon pointed at the heart of hegemony space. "This fleet represents 3 months of human productivity," Holloway explained. 16 ships built with one purpose, to demonstrate that humans are not your prey. We are not victims waiting to be processed by your empire. We are a species that turns pain into engineering problems and solves those problems with extreme prejudice. In the bunker beneath Nexus Prime's capital, Chancellor Veltar watched his empire's reputation die in real time. Across hegemony space, subject worlds were receiving the same broadcast. Oppressed species were learning that someone had not only resisted the hegemony but had made them pay a terrible price for their arrogance. "Sir," his aide reported with barely controlled panic, "we're receiving reports of uprising on 17 worlds. The broadcast is being treated as a signal for coordinated rebellion." The transmission continued, now showing Marcus Holloway standing in the Retribution's medical bay, his injuries healing but his resolve unshaken. "To the species under hegemony rule, humanity offers alliance to any who seek freedom from oppression. To the hegemony leadership, you have 72 hours to release all political prisoners, recall your occupation forces, and begin the process of granting independence to your subject worlds." Chancellor Veltar's 4 eyes widened in disbelief. "They're demanding the dissolution of our empire." "And if we refuse?" asked Defense Minister Kolvex, though his voice suggested he already knew the answer. The transmission provided clarification. The view shifted to show the human fleet's weapons charging, energy readings that suggested each ship could single-handedly destroy the planet below. "If you refuse," Holloway said simply, "we will demonstrate what human creativity can accomplish when properly motivated. You will learn why our species conquered our homeworld, why we mastered fire and steel in the spaces between stars. You will discover that the worst predator in the galaxy is a human being who has been given a reason to hate." The broadcast ended, leaving Nexus Prime in stunned silence. 3 billion souls contemplated their mortality while their leaders grappled with the collapse of everything they had built. 72 hours later, the hegemony formally announced the independence of its subject worlds. Marcus Holloway stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth's moon rise over the horizon of humanity's homeworld. His physical injuries had healed completely thanks to advanced medical technology, but the scars on his soul had been transformed into something else. A reminder of what humans could accomplish when pushed beyond their limits. "The final reports came in today," Elena Vasquez said, joining him at the transparent aluminum window. She wore the uniform of the newly formed Colonial Defense Force, her sergeant's stripes replaced by the insignia of a full colonel. 43 worlds have declared independence from the hegemony. The Corvin species has requested formal alliance with humanity, and the Galactic Council has officially recognized human space as a sovereign territory not to be violated under any circumstances. Holloway nodded, unsurprised. The Retribution and her sister ships remained deployed throughout human space, their mere presence serving as a reminder of what happened to those who threatened humanity. The ships had become legend, stories told in a dozen languages about the species that turned one man's suffering into an empire's downfall. "Any word from the hegemony itself?" he asked. "Complete governmental restructuring. Chancellor Veltar was executed by his own people 3 weeks ago. They're calling it the Great Reformation. Apparently, having their entire military doctrine rendered obsolete by 16 ships was something of a wake-up call." Through the station's communication arrays, messages continued to arrive from across the galaxy. Species that had suffered under hegemony rule, asking for assistance in rebuilding their civilizations. Independent worlds seeking trade agreements with humanity. Even former hegemony officials, requesting asylum and offering intelligence about other oppressive regimes. "Do you ever regret it?" Vasquez asked quietly. "The cost was enormous. We converted our entire civilization into a weapon." Holloway considered the question, his remaining eye reflecting the stars beyond Earth's atmosphere. 3 months of torture taught me something important about human nature, Elena. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest or the most advanced. But we're the only species that responds to cruelty by becoming more dangerous than the thing that hurt us. He turned from the window, his scarred face showing a piece that had been absent for months. They wanted to break one human. Instead, they taught 4 billion humans how to build ships that could break star systems. I'd say the lesson was worth the price. In the depths of space, the Retribution continued her patrol of the outer colonies, her black hull drinking in starlight as she moved through the darkness. Her crew had volunteered for permanent assignment, understanding that some promises required eternal vigilance to maintain. The ship's mission orders were simple and permanent. Ensure that no human being would ever again suffer alone in an alien prison. The galaxy had learned what happened when humanity's compassion was perverted into rage. They would not be given another opportunity to forget. In the end, the hegemony had been correct about one thing: humans were indeed a primitive species. But they had misunderstood what that meant. Humanity's primitive nature wasn't a weakness to be exploited. It was a warning to be heeded. The stars belonged to everyone now. But they remained, first and always, humanity's responsibility to protect.